Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhajakachari Statirasata Shishima Jagadguru Saraswarupa Ananda Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhajakachari Statirasata Shishima His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavanda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridasta Kaur Ki Jai. Prem Shikoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganges Mai Ki Jai. Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur's World Mission Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled of hosts. All glories to the assembled of hosts. All glories to the assembled of hosts. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga, Gaur Premananda. Om Madhyanatammarandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chakshulundalitam Jena Tajmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dadati Swapadantam. I was born in the darkest of ignorance. My spiritual masters have opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto them. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter at his lotus feet? Prabhupada. Today we'll be reading from the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We'll start with chapter 14, the system of universal management. Mahārāja Parikshit inquired, O most opulent Sukadeva Goswami, please explain to me how Manu and the others in each Manvantara are engaged in their respective duties and by whose order they are so engaged. Sukadeva Goswami said, the Manus, the sons of Manu, the great sages, the Indras, and all the demigods, O king, are appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his various incarnations, such as Jagna. O king, I have already described to you various incarnations of the Lord, such as Jagna. The Manus and others are chosen by these incarnations, under whose direction they conduct the universal affairs. Purport. The Manus execute the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his various incarnations. At the end of every 4 yugas, the great saintly persons, upon seeing that the eternal occupational duties of mankind have been misused, establish the principles of religion. Purport. In this verse, the words Dharma and Sanatan are very important. Sanatan means eternal, and Dharma means occupational duties. From Satya Yuga to Kali Yuga, the principles of religion and occupational duty gradually deteriorate. In Satya Yuga, the religious principles are observed in full, without deviation. In Treta Yuga, however, these principles are somewhat neglected, and only 3/4 of the religious duties continue. In Dwapara Yuga, only half of the religious principles continue, and in Kali Yuga, only 1/4 of the religious principles, which gradually disappear. At the end of Kali Yuga, the principles of religion or the occupational duties of humanity are almost lost. Indeed, In this Kali Yuga, we have passed through only 5,000 years, yet the decline of Sanatana Dharma is very prominent. The duty of saintly persons, therefore, is to take up seriously the cause of Sanatana Dharma and try to reestablish it for the benefit of the entire human society. The Krishna conscious movement has been started according to this principle, as stated in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 12.351. Kaler dosya nidhe rajan ashtihe eko mahan guna. Kirtanad eva Krishnaya mukta sangha param rajat. The entire Kali Yuga is full of faults. It is like an unlimited ocean of faults. But the Krishna consciousness movement is very authorized. Therefore, following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who 500 years ago inaugurated the movement of Sankirtan, Krishna Kirtan, we are trying to introduce this movement according to superior orders all over the world. Now, if the inaugurators of this movement strictly follow the regulative principles and spread this movement for the benefit of all human society, they will certainly usher in a new way of life by reestablishing Sanatana Dharma, the eternal occupational duties of humanity. The eternal occupational duty of the human being is to serve Krishna. Jivera Sarupya Haya Krishnera Nitya Das. This is the purport of Sanatana Dharma. Sanatan means Nitya, or eternal, and Krishna Das means servant of Krishna. The eternal occupational duty of the human being is to serve Krishna. This is the sum and substance of the Krishna consciousness movement. I always think about this Prabhupada speaks so directly to us in his purports about how he's partnered with us in this mission to spread the teachings and the mission of Lord Chaitanya. And in a very succinct and concise way, he just lays it out, right? That although the entire Kali Yuga is full of faults, it is like an unlimited ocean of faults. But that if we can simply take the instructions of the acharyas who are coming down in disciplic succession from Krishna and Lord Chaitanya themselves, we simply have to follow these regulative principles that have been given to us and then pass them on as we receive them, and the whole world can be changed. I mean, Kali Yuga is still going to be Kali Yuga, right? There's still going to be so many problems. There's going to be so many faults. There's going to be so much suffering caused by the ignorance of the people in general. But Krishna is there in everyone's heart. And everyone has that relationship with Krishna dormant in their heart. And everyone is actually longing and yearning for that reconnection to take place. And simply, if there's some little spark of remembrance that can just set them in motion and begin the process of breaking the bonds of the chains of Maya and giving them a breath of fresh air. So we're so fortunate to have been offered this opportunity. Text 5. Thereafter, O king, the Manus, being fully engaged according to the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, directly reestablished the principles of occupational duty in its full 4 parts. Purport. Dharma, or occupational duty, can be established in its full 4 parts as explained in Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita 4:1, the Lord says, Imam vivashvate yogam prakravan aham avyaya. Vivishwan manave praha manur ishvakave bravit. I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivishwan, and Vivishwan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu, in turn, instructed it to Ishvaku. This is the process of disciplic succession. Following the same process, the Krishna consciousness movement is teaching the principles of Bhagavad Gita as it is, without deviation, all over the world. If the fortunate people of this time accept the instructions of Lord Krishna, they will certainly be happy in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted everyone, at least in India, to become a preacher of this mission. In other words, one should become a guru and preach the Lord's instructions all over the world for the peace and prosperity of humanity. And as Lord Chaitanya was traveling through South India, when he was traveling and preaching for the first 6 years of his sannyas lifestyle after moving to Jagannath Puri, he would so often, he'd be going to a village and he would be chanting and instructing, and people would become attracted. And more often than not, everyone wanted to just follow Lord Chaitanya to the next village, just go wherever he went, never leave him. But Lord Chaitanya said, no. It is more pleasing, it is more important that you return, you stay in your village, and you take these instructions seriously, and you actually become guru, and you pass on this teaching, so that everyone that you come in contact with can also be given this opportunity to share in Lord Chaitanya's mission and Lord Chaitanya's love, and actually experience peace and prosperity. So we find ourselves, our own Srila Prabhupada is working so hard in this very same mood, instructing all of his students and disciples to become living temples. You should be living in such a way that your house is a temple, your home, your body is a temple. And that simply by bumping into you and having what would otherwise be a mundane interaction has the opportunity to become into the turning point of that person's life, and they can be introduced into a whole alternate world of love instead of the lust that we're chained by under the modes of material nature. Text 6. To enjoy the results of sacrifices, jagnas, the ruler of the world, namely the sons and grandsons of Manu, discharge the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead until the end of Manu's reign. The demigods also share the results of these sacrifices. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 4:2, Evam paramparam praptam imam raharsha jo vidhu. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. This parampara system extends from Manu to Ishvaku, and from Ishvaku to the sons and grandsons. The rulers of the world in the line of hierarchy execute the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the parampara system. Anyone interested in peaceful life must participate in this parampara system and perform jagnas. As Gaudiya Vaishnavas in the parampara system of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we must perform Sankirtan jagna all over the world. Jagnai Sankirtan prayer yanti hi sumedashaha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this age of Kali, and he will be easily satisfied if the Sankirtan movement is spread vigorously all over the world. This will also make people happy without a doubt. It's the nature of the soul to engage in loving affairs. Loving affairs means doing what's beneficial for my beloved, rendering service to my beloved. And the more one becomes linked up with Lord Chaitanya's mission and comes linked up with the will and desire of his spiritual master, and actually dedicates his being, not just his life, because this life is only a flash in a pan, right? But dedicates his being to engaging in the devotional service of Krishna and his devotees, then his life becomes extremely happy, in spite of whatever difficulties he may encounter along those journeys. Queen Kunti spoke so eloquently to Lord Krishna when he was leaving to return to Dwarka, and she was saying, "Oh, Krishna, it's so hard to see you leave, but since it's time for you to go, I pray that you may always keep me in anxiety. Because when I'm in anxiety, then I have no option but other than to turn to you. And when I turn to you and pray to you, then you're there. And therefore, if I'm always in anxiety, then I'll always be in your association." So similarly, the devotee of Krishna does not curse the challenges of spreading Lord Chaitanya's mission. He doesn't be overwhelmed by the shortcomings of his talents and determination and intelligence. He sees that everything is coming from Krishna, whatever insignificant talents and intellect he may have. It's just all Krishna's mercy. It's all Krishna's grace. And if Krishna doesn't want him to understand something or know something or to be challenged by something, then there's something to be gained from that challenge. He simply has to go deep and pray to Krishna and ask for the understanding of what that is. Text 7. And King of Heaven, receiving benedictions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus enjoying highly developed opulences, maintains the living entities all over the three worlds by pouring sufficient rain on all the planets. In every yuga, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, assumes the form of siddhas, such as Sanaka, to preach transcendental knowledge. He assumes the form of great saintly persons, such as Janavakya, to teach the way of karma. And he assumes the form of great yogis, such as Dattatreya, to teach the system of mystic yoga. Report. For the benefit of all human society, not only does the Lord assume the form of Manu as an incarnation to rule the universe properly, but he also assumes the forms of a teacher, yogi, jnani, and so on, for the benefit of human society. The duty of human society, therefore, is to accept the path of action enunciated by the Supreme Lord. In the present age, the sum and substance of all Vedic knowledge is to be found in Bhagavad Gita, which is personally taught by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the same Supreme Godhead, assuming the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, expands the teachings of Bhagavad Gita all over the world. In other words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is so kind and merciful to human society that he is always anxious to take the fallen souls back home, back to Godhead. And from this we can understand the heart and mind of our Gurudev. He is also always anxious to take the fallen souls back home, back to Godhead. Text 9. In the form of Prajapati Maharishi, the Supreme Personality of Godhead creates progeny. Becoming the king, he kills the thieves and rogues, and in the form of time, he annihilates everything. All the different qualities of material existence should be understood to be qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. People in general are bewildered by the illusory energy, and therefore they try to find the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through various types of research and philosophical speculation. Nonetheless, they are unable to see the Supreme Lord. Purport. Whatever actions and reactions take place for the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this material world are actually brought about by the one Supreme Person. There are many varieties of philosophers trying to search for the ultimate cause under different names and forms, but they are unable to find the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, who explains in Bhagavad Gita that he is the origin of everything and the cause of all causes. Aham sarvasya prabhava. This inability is due to the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord. Devotees, therefore, accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is and remain happy simply by chanting the glories of the Lord. So this is a very nice point, that due to the nature of the false ego and the illusory energy, the conditioned soul has a tendency to want to understand everything with his mind through the agencies of the gross material senses. This is because we have put ourselves in the position of being the supreme judge. We're the ones who can determine what is right, what is wrong, what is truth, what is fiction. We set ourselves up, right? I'm in charge of my life. I know what's good for me, right? Got to look out for number one. But the unfortunate fact is that we have very little ability to understand hardly anything. Just look around you, look around at this amazing creation. And this is just the material world. It's so indescribable. It's so inexplicable, right? This is our own bodies. I mean, these people have dedicated their entire life to trying to understand the science of keeping the body healthy. And yet, what do we have? So many diseases. Everyone's suffering old age. Everyone's suffering death, right? So many people have been so motivated, right, to crack this, just keep this body healthy, right? Even if you can't make it live forever, at least keep it healthy while it's, while we're here. No, can't do that. Yet we want to set ourselves up as being able to judge God. Judge what is the truth. Judge what is right. Judge what is wrong. This is what keeps us bound up in the clutches of Maya. We simply have to surrender to Krishna. Krishna tells us this directly in Bhagavad Gita. Just surrender unto me. and I will protect you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Just surrender to Krishna. What does this surrender mean? The surrender means to accept Krishna's unconditional love for you. And to know that everything Krishna does is for your benefit. You may not understand how it's beneficial for you at the moment, right? But you have to have that faith and that love of Krishna. You have to be able to accept the teachings of Bhagavad Gita where he's explaining to you, you are not this material body. You are not going to find your happiness in these pleasing these temporary material senses. What is so attractive today is going to be repulsive tomorrow. You're just going to get into this loop of chasing your tail if you try to figure it out on your own. But if we simply accept Krishna's instruction, accept the help of the spiritual master, accept the unconditional love that's being offered to us, give up thinking that I am capable of understanding and judging and determining everything on my own, independently of Krishna's instructions and the instructions of my Guru Day. If we can simply do that, our life can become successful very easily. Unfortunately, we're very conditioned. And we're very obstinate, we're very stubborn, and we're very foolish. And we need a lot of help. But that's okay. Krishna likes helping us out. Krishna likes when we take shelter of him. Text 11. In one kalpa, or one day of Brahma, there take place the many changes called vikalpas. O king, all of these have been previously described to you by me. Learned scholars who know the past, present, and future have ascertained that in one day of Brahma, there are 14 manus. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 8th canto, 14th chapter of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam entitled, The System of Universal Management. Right? So we're just going to roll on into the chapter 15. Bali Mahārāja conquers the heavenly planets. Mahārāja Parikshit inquired, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the proprietor of everything. Why did he beg for 3 paces of land from Bali Mahārāja like a poor man? And when he got the gift for which he begged, why did he nonetheless arrest Bali Mahārāja? I am very much anxious to know the mystery of these contradictions. This is coming from a king, right? He can relate to Bali Mahārāja. He did what he asked for. He still got arrested, That didn't seem right. Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, when Bali Mahārāja lost all his opulence and died in the fight, Sukracharya, a descendant of Bhrigu Muni, brought him back to life. Because of this, the great soul Bali Mahārāja became a disciple of Sukracharya and began to serve him with great faith, offering everything. The Brahmin descendants of Bhrigu Muni were very pleased with Bali Mahārāja, who desired to conquer the kingdom of Indra. Therefore, after purifying him and properly bathing him according to regulative principles, they engaged him in performing the yajna known as Vishbhajit. When ghee, clarified butter, was offered in the fire of sacrifice, there appeared from the fire a celestial chariot covered with gold and silk. There also appeared yellow horses like those of Indra, and a flag marked with a lion. a gilded bow, 2 quivers of infallible arrows, and celestial armor also appeared. Bali Mahārāja's grandfather, Prahlāda Mahārāja, offered Bali a garland of flowers that would never fade, and Sukracharya gave him a conch shell. When Mahārāja Bali had thus performed the special ritualistic ceremony advised by the Brahmins and had received by their grace the equipment for fighting, he circumambulated the Brahmins and offered them obeisances. He also saluted Prahlāda Mahārāja and offered obeisances to him. Then, after getting on the chariot given by Sukracharya, Bali Mahārāja, decorated with a nice garland, put protective armor on his body, equipped himself with a bow, and took up a sword and quiver of arrows. When he sat down on the seat of the chariot, his arms decorated with golden bangles, and his ears with sapphire earrings, he shone like a worshipable fire. When he assembled his own soldiers and the demon chiefs, who were equal to him in strength, opulence, and beauty, they appeared as if they would swallow the sky and burn all directions with their vision. After thus gathering the demoniac soldiers, Bali Mahārāja departed for the opulent capital of Indra. Indeed, he seemed to make the entire surface of the world tremble. King Indra's city was full of pleasing orchards and gardens, such as the Nandana garden. Because of the weight of the flowers, leaves, and fruit, the branches of the eternally existing trees were bending down. The gardens were visited by pairs of chirping birds and singing bees. The entire atmosphere was celestial. Beautiful women by the demigods sported in the gardens, which had lotus ponds full of swans, cranes, chakravakas, and ducks. The city was surrounded by trenches full of Ganges water, known as Akshana Ganga, and by a high wall, which was the color of fire. Upon this wall were parapets for fighting. The doors were made of solid gold plates, and the gates were of excellent marble. These were linked by various public roads. The entire city had been constructed by Vishvakarma. The city was full of courtyards, wide roads, assembly houses, and not less than 100 million airplanes. The crossroads were made of pearl, and there were sitting places made of diamond and coral. Everlastingly beautiful and youthful women, who were dressed with clean garments, glittered in the city like fires with flames. They all possessed the quality of Shama. Report. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a hint of the quality of Shama women. Sita Kali Bhaved Ushna, Ushma Kali Shishtutava, Stanushtahananu Yashman, Tasta Shama Parikatat. A woman whose body is very warm during the winter and cool during the summer, and who generally has very firm breast, is called Shama. The breezes blowing in the streets of the city bore the fragrance of the flowers falling from the hair of the women of the demigods. Apsaras passed on the streets, which were covered with the white, fragrant smoke of a guru, incense emanating from the windows with golden filigree. The city was shaded by canopies decorated with pearls, and the domes of the palaces had flags of pearl and gold. The city always resounded with the vibrations of peacocks, pigeons, and bees, and above the city flew airplanes full of beautiful women who constantly chanted auspicious songs that were very pleasing to hear, pleasing to the ear. The city was filled with the sounds of mridungas, conch shells, kettle drums, flutes, and well-tuned string instruments, all playing in concert. There was constant dancing, and the Gandharvas sang. The combined beauty of Indapuri, defeated beauty personified. No one who was sinful, envious, violent toward other living entities, cunning, falsely proud, lusty or greedy could enter that city. The people who lived there were all devoid of these faults. Bali Mahārāja, who was the commander of numberless soldiers, gathered his soldiers outside this abode of Indra and attacked it from all directions. He sounded the conch shell given him by his spiritual master Sukracharya, thus creating a fearful situation for the women protected by Indra. Seeing Bali Mahārāja's indefatigable endeavor and understanding his motive, King Indra, along with the other demigods, approached his spiritual master Brihaspati and spoke as follows. My lord, our old enemy Bali Mahārāja now has new enthusiasm, and he has obtained such astonishing power that we think that perhaps we cannot resist his prowess. No one anywhere can counteract this military arrangement of Bali's. It now appears that Bali is trying to drink up the entire universe with his mouth, lick up the 10 directions with his tongue, and raise fire in every direction with his eyes. Indeed, he has arisen like the annihilating fire known as Samvrataka. Kindly inform me, what is the cause for Bali Mahārāja's strength, endeavor, influence, and victory? How has he become so enthusiastic? Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods, said, O Indra, I know the cause of your enemies becoming so powerful. The Brahmin descendants of Bhrigu Muni, being pleased by Bali Mahārāja, their disciple, endowed him with such extraordinary power. Report. Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods, informed Indra, ordinarily, Bali and his forces could not achieve such strength, but it appears that the Brahmin descendants of Bhrigu Muni, being pleased with Bali Mahārāja, endowed them with this spiritual power. In other words, Brihaspati informed Indra that Bali Mahārāja's prowess was not his own, but that of his exalted guru, Sukracharya. We sing in our daily prayers, Yasha Prasad Bhagavat Prasado, Yasha Prasadam Nagagikatopi. By the pleasure of the spiritual master, one can get extraordinary power, especially in spiritual advancement. The blessings of the spiritual master are more powerful than one's personal endeavor for such advancement. Narottam Das Thakur therefore says, Guru Mukupara Vakya Chittete Kariya Aikya Arana Karihar Manayasa. Especially for spiritual advancement, one should carry out the bona fide order of the spiritual master. By the Parampara system, one can thus be endowed with the original spiritual power coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Evam Parampara Patam Imam Narharsha Jovidhu. So by linking up with the desire of the spiritual master, one can become successful. So the trick is to be careful what you desire. Desire something useful, beneficial. Text 29. Neither you nor your men can conquer the most powerful Bali. Indeed, no one but the Supreme Personality of Godhead can conquer him, for he is now equipped with the supreme spiritual power, Brahma Tehas. As no one can stand before Yamaraj, no one can now stand before Bali Mahārāja. Therefore, waiting until the situation of your enemies is reversed, you should all leave this heavenly planet and go elsewhere where you will not be seen. Bali Mahārāja has now become extremely powerful because of the benedictions given him by the Brahmins. But when he later insults the Brahmins, he will be vanquished along with his friends and assistants. Purport. Bali Mahārāja and Indra were enemies. Therefore, when Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods, predicted that Bali Mahārāja would be vanquished when he insulted the Brahmins by whose grace he had become so powerful, Bali Mahārāja's enemies were naturally anxious to know when that opportune moment would come. To pacify King Indra, Brihaspati assured him that the time would certainly come, for Brihaspati could see that in the future, Bali Mahārāja would defy the orders of Sukracharya in order to pacify Lord Vishnu Vamanadev. Of course, to advance in Krishna consciousness, one can take all risk. To please Vamanadev, Bali Mahārāja risked defying the orders of his spiritual master, Sukracharya. Because of this, he would lose all his property. Yet, because of devotional service to the Lord, he would get more than he expected. And in the future, in the 8th Manvantar, he would occupy the throne of Indra again. Krishna is such a chess master, yeah? Krishna goes through so much trouble to keep us entertained. Yeah. He knows we're addicted to all kinds of adventure stories and this and that, you know. We can't just sit around and read, you know, about the transcendental glories of Krishna, you know, directly all the time. We have to have all this other stuff to distract us and engage our contaminated mental proclivities. So he has all this drama going on before people like Bali Mahārāja and Indra and Daksha and Shiva and Dhruva Maharaj and the Yakshasas. And we can engage our mind in all these kind of activities without losing sight of the real goal, which is to become, once again, dedicated and loving service to Krishna. Text 32. Sukadeva Goswami continued, the demigods, being thus advised by Brihaspati for their benefit, immediately accepted his words. Assuming forms according to their desire, they left the heavenly kingdom and scattered, without being observed by the demons. Purport. The word Kama Rupina indicates that the demigods, the inhabitants of the heavenly planets, can assume any form they desire. Thus, it was not at all difficult for them to remain incognito before the eyes of the demons. 33. When the demigods had disappeared, Bali Mahārāja, the son of Virachana, entered the heavenly kingdom, and from there he brought the 3 worlds under his control. The Brahmin descendants of Bhrigu, being very pleased with their disciple, who had conquered the entire universe, now engaged him in performing 100 Ashvamedha sacrifices. Purport. We have seen in the dispute between Mahārāja and Indra that when Mahārāja Prithu wanted to perform 100 Ashvamedha yajnas, Indra wanted to impede him, for it became such a great sacrifice that Indra was made the king of heaven. I'm sorry, I'll read that again. We have seen in the dispute between Mahārāja Prithu and Indra that when Mahārāja Prithu wanted to perform 100 Ashvamedha yajnas, Indra wanted to impede him, For it is because of such great sacrifices that Indra was made the king of heaven. Here, the Brahmin descendants of Bhrigu decided that although Bali Mahārāja was situated on the throne of Indra, he would not be able to stay there unless he performed such sacrifices. Therefore, they advised Mahārāja Bali to perform at least as many Ashvamedha Yajnas as Indra. The word Avyajnanam indicates that all the Brahmins induced Bali Mahārāja to perform such sacrifices. This is the nature of material enjoyment, right? It's temporary. You're always going to be in anxiety that it's going to be taken away. So you're having to do all these things to try to prolong it, try to keep it there. Yet, ultimately, you will be defeated. Text 35. When Bali Mahārāja performed these sacrifices, he gained a great reputation in all directions, throughout the three worlds. Thus, he shone in his position like the brilliant moon in the sky. Because of the favor of the Brahmins, the great soul Bali Mahārāja, thinking himself very satisfied, became very opulent and prosperous and began to enjoy the kingdom. Purport. The Brahmins are called Dvija Deva, and Kshatriyas are generally called Naradeva. The word Deva actually refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Brahmins guide human society in becoming happy by satisfying Lord Vishnu. And according to their advice, the Kshatriyas, who are called Naradeva, keep law and order so that other people, namely the Vaishyas and Sudras, may properly follow regulative principles. In this way, people are gradually elevated to Krishna consciousness. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 8th canto, 15th chapter of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam entitled, Bali Mahārāja Conquers the Heavenly Planets.
Haribol.
Play acting. Yeah? Prahlad Mahārāja, Bali Mahārāja, all these great devotees. They're not really under the control of the modes of material nature. They're actually under the control of Krishna. Krishna's directing them like the director of some movie or some play. And even though they may be unrecognizable, they're at that role. It's like Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were unrecognizable to those who knew them as the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, right? They're still the same personalities. And they're just temporarily engaging in these activities for the pleasure of Krishna. And we hear about all these great battles in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam and whatever, right? Where do these battles, propensity to fight, come from? It comes from Krishna. Krishna and the cowherd boys and their sporting activities and their competitiveness and their, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's got to, what's the good of being the Supreme if you can't dominate over somebody? You got to be able to show your prowess. So Krishna and the cowherd boys, they enjoyed engaging in all this mock fighting and competitive sports and all these kind of things. Krishna enjoys. Sometimes he lets them win, or Balaram's team wins, and they have to carry them, Balaram and his friends, around on their shoulders, or go jump in the river with their clothes on, or whatever it is that the bet was, and stakes of the game. So then in its most pure form, it's like that in Vrindavan. And then in the material world, it gets a little perverted, but it's still there, right? So Krishna wants to come and fight with the demon. Well, he has to have a demon he can fight with, right? And he's not going to just fight with any Joe Blow or whatever. It's got to be one of his devotees who's serving him in that way. And that position reminds me of hearing Tusta talking about when he was early days when he was with Srila Prabhupada, and they were doing all kinds of martial arts and things like that. And they used to have these battles, martial arts battles. And Tusta was, one point, was starting to get the better of Srila Prabhupada in a fight. And I forget exactly how it was phrased, but Prabhupada said, "You can't hit your spiritual master. You can't do that." It's just to stop, and then Prabhupada, when he stopped, and then Prabhupada attacked, and defeated him. So it's called playing the guru card, and all in good fun, We have this tendency to think that, especially in the neophyte stage, that because there's all these rules and regulations that we're advised to follow, right? So we start to think that all these rules and regulations are what are important. The rules and regulations aren't all in all. They're not what are important. They are tools to help us get to a point of loving exchange. The loving exchange is the goal. And it's because we have this tendency to cheat in this conditioned state of consciousness, we don't want to give our heart. We don't want to give our love. But we want the goodies from doing that. Or we want to pretend we're doing it, or, try to cheat our way into, So, okay, I'll follow the letter of the law. And maybe that's as good as engaging in the spirit of the law. But it's not, right? The letter of the law can be very dry, not very fulfilling to the heart. We have to come to that point where we're actually serving out of love and doing these activities out of love, and realizing that all these rules and regulations are there for our benefit, and they're a manifestation of Krishna's and the Acharya's love for us. Help us get through the impelling modes of material nature that, like a whirlpool, just suck us into a very undesirable if we let it. We're very fortunate to have a pure devotee of Krishna who understands, not just understands, but lives on the highest platform of loving exchange with Krishna. Can introduce us into that lifestyle, who can correct our missteps and nudge us back onto the path with its instructions and its chastisement, its supplemental care that he offers. Krishna's always there with the modes of material nature, causing us all kinds of difficulties and challenges to help us realize this or realize that. Take shelter of a man, realizing that we can't do anything on our own. Yeah. Very fortunate. Anyone have anything they want to contribute or anything they...
Haribo, namaste. Thank you so much.
Haribo.
I was just wondering, Samvataka is both fire and the cloud, right? The energy of Indra, Samvataka.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I noticed that too. I guess because they're...
It's both what?
They're both
fire and what?
Fire and the devastating rainfall, the clouds that Indra has.
Oh, okay.
They both have the same name or title. And I don't know if it's a name or a title, and whether it just means devastation. Not much of a Sanskrit.
I Googled it, sorry. And it said that it's the energy of Indra, and it's both fire and cloud. I don't know.
Kind of like lightning, huh? Lightning's fire, but it comes from a cloud.
Yeah, but it's Lord Shiva who actually destroys the universe at the end. It's not Indra.
That's true.
Right? So
yeah.
And he does it by playing it on his drum and causing the fire in that way. So yeah.
Actually, I'm sorry, that reminded me of, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, but in one of the verses it seemed to indicate that at some point in time Lord Shiva actually had the post of Indra. Like Lord Shiva was one of the Indras or something like that.
Yeah, it was. I forget which Manu it happened in, but Shambhu becomes Indra in one of those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what it said. And Shambhu is one of Shiva's names. Yeah.
Because Indra's a post, right? Just like Brahma's a post, and there's a different personality that occupies that post in different time frames and so on.
Well, there's a bunch of Indras for every Brahma, because Brahma lasts the whole universe. Each universe.
There's 14 Manus in each day of Brahma, right?
Yeah, exactly. So calculate that out. 14 times 365 times 100 years of Brahma. It's quite a few Indras. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all a bit much for my tiny brain.
And sorry, when it says the eternal...
That's 511,000 Indras. Sorry.
What's that, Kati?
And when it said that eternally existing trees, that means when Indra is gone, the trees there.
Well, you'll notice in the Bhāgavatam, and we're using the English translations, right? But nothing in the material world is eternally existing, right? Because the whole thing gets wrapped up after each day of Brahma. So when they say eternally existing trees, it's to indicate they're there. They appear to be eternal because they're there as long as there's people around to enjoy them. But they're not eternal trees like we're eternal spirit souls. It's a little bit different. Language is limited in what it can, because otherwise you're going to have to take a couple of sentences to try to spell out that whole thing, right? But if it's a lot easier to say eternally existing trees. Reminds me when Acharya Das was when he was traveling with India, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada in India, he asked the first question he asked him. He said, "I've read that there's two classifications of spirit soul: the Nitya Siddhas and the Nitya Bandhas. And the Nitya Siddhas are the eternally liberated, and the Nitya Bandhas are those who are eternally bound up in the material world." And he was disturbed by the concept that somebody could be eternally bound up in the material world. And so you approach Bhaktivedanta, he says, this Nityabhata stage, he says, is that really eternity? And they're eternally bound in the material world? And Bhaktivedanta Swami says, no. He says, everyone will eventually return to Krishna, but some people remain so long in the material world, it's as if it was eternity. So there's overall principles that we're given that help us understand, even though the language doesn't necessarily properly describe everything, right? Because we know the overlying principles of it, we understand what they mean, what's meant by that statement.
Thank you, Haribo.
Isn't it true that there is, I don't know if it's Brahmaloka or Svargaloka or something, but there's a planet that's in the material universe that's also out of the material universe, like in Vaikuntha or something like that?
I think you're thinking of Dhruvaloka. It's the Sweta Dweep.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's actually, it's not annihilated. It's the North Star. It's not annihilated when the rest of the universe is at the day of Brahma and everything else is, it doesn't get annihilated.
So those are the in-between annihilations, though, not the like final annihilation at the end of the universe.
Right, when everything goes back into the Mahavishnu, then it's all gone, right? But
yeah,
at every day of Brahma, the whole thing is destroyed, right? But that planet is not destroyed.
Okay.
And that's where the ocean of milk is, and that's where Lord Vishnu is, and that's where Dhruva Maharaj got that planet. Because when he was praying, he wanted a planet great, he wanted a kingdom greater than that of his grandfather. And his grandfather is Lord Brahma. And so in order to give him, fulfill his desire, then Vishnu says, okay, you get this, the pole star.
Krishna. Krishna is so amazing.
It is, and I mean, the concept of eternality, it's just so inconceivable, to the conditioned soul. I mean, just here where we read how Brihaspati, because he could see past, present, and future, he knew that Bali Mahārāja was going to already disobey Sukracharya when Vamanadev came, right? So he already knows what's going to, so there's people that have that kind of vision. We don't have that kind of vision. So we're acting kind of, flying blind here. But, Brihaspati says, don't worry about it. This is just a mere temporary setback, go do something else for a while. And, these guys turn to be on top. No big deal. Let your little brother play with the toy truck for a little while. This kind of stuff.
Soon it'll be your turn. Yeah.
And you can bet that garland that never faded that Prahlad gave Bali Maharaj had been offered to Krishna already. And it's Prashadam garland, and things like that going on. All right. Anything else before we chant for a few minutes?
Haribo.
Haribo. Namaste. Om Vishnu Padaya.
Oh, you need original sound.
That's right, I did turn it on, didn't I?
Thank you, Haribol.
You'd think I'd be smart enough to, it's right there on the screen. I can see it. I think I'll look up there.
Easy to forget.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Shimati Saraswarupananda Paramahamsa Ite Namine Namo Saraswarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Varakaruna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prasthayate Namaste Sarasvati Deva Vani Pracharane Nivasesha Sunyavadi Astya Vishatarane Aja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Bhaktavranda Aja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Raja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Bhaktavranda Raja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna, Jaya Jaya Vrindavan, Shri Govinda Gopinatha, Mohan.
Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Jaya Vrindavan, Shri Govinda
Namaste, Narasringaya, Ladaya, Hiranyakashi, Raksha, Srivatanga Kalai, Dona Shringa, Paratona Shringa, Jato Jato Jamita Tona Shringa, Ayena Shringa, Ayena Shringa, Shrinamare Saranam. Takar Kamalavareinakam, Amukashringa, Kamita, Hiranyakashipu, Kamavriga, Keshavadrita, Narahari Rupa, Jagadisha, Jaya Jagadisha, Jaya Jagadisha. Haribol.
Howdy.